Hello, this is John Milburn, continuing with the series on legal research. So in the first video, we talked about some of the paid and free services available to you. So the paid databases that you'll probably refer to are LexisNexis, which is Advanced Pacific, or Lexis.com, Westlaw, which is Thomson Reuters product, and perhaps CCH. They'd be the main ones. The free online databases that you'll need to be familiar with relate to the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel for Queensland, Federal Register of Legislation, and the unauthorised but still excellent Ostley and Jade. Let's have a look at Ostley. I'll share the screen, and this is a very popular service. It's absolutely free, and it's also absolutely fabulous. I'll just see if I can get the share screen to work properly. So hopefully now you're looking at Ostley. So Ostley, first thing, there's a user guide down the bottom right-hand side. This is for the up-to-date revised version of Ostley, and I'll refer back to that user guide at time to time. The layout is simple. Ostley contains many databases, huge amount of material, and it has its own collection of primary materials, legislation, court judgments. It has the explanatory memoranda for Commonwealth bills and the explanatory notes for state bills. There is a huge amount of secondary materials, commentaries, and summaries on the law. So it has legislation and case law primarily. Let's have a look at both of those. Firstly, legislation. You'll see that we have links to cases and legislation, and then you can go to Commonwealth or the individual state or territory, or you can access legislation through the state or territory or Commonwealth as the first way to do. So let's have a look at Commonwealth. And you'll see there's the options for case law, legislation, or other materials, ATO rulings. Let's have a look at legislation, and you'll see Commonwealth consolidated acts and a whole range of other materials. So right here we see explanatory memoranda from 1959 onwards. So that's an easy way to find the explanatory memorandum for a particular piece of legislation or a bill that becomes legislation. So let's go into Commonwealth Consolidated Acts, and you'll see that the most commonly accessed, corporations, income tax, family law, fair work. So that's an easy way to find the material. Alternatively, you can use the A to Z or near enough Z link for particular legislation. Let's try a worked example. We'll go to the Acts Interpretation Act. I scroll. If you can tell me a quicker way to do it by using search facilities, I'm very open to that. So I'm looking for the Acts Interpretation Act. Commonwealth 1901. Beautiful layout. On the top, you'll see search this legislation link. Let's insert something looking for what you're interested in for this piece of legislation, and that is interpretation and constitution. We'll hit the search button, and you'll see that it provides you with a link by either relevance or citation frequency, database, date, or title to a number of things within that act that relate to interpretation and constitution. So your particular interest might be this. At the bottom, section 15A, construction of acts is subject to the Constitution. Let's go back to the legislation, and you'll see there are hyperlinks to individual sections. Our interest might be in section 15 Cap A, which is the interpretation best achieving the Act's purpose or object. So it will state what the section says. That's the current version of the legislation. However, a very handy, in fact vital, option that you have available to you is to consider Note Up, which is to have a quick look to see what has been cited by this legislation. So we have a series of articles and cases and legislation relevant to Section 15AA. It's great to just play around with these websites and get an idea of what they contain. So also in OSLI, we have a great deal of information about subordinate legislation. We have explanatory memorandum, we've just showed you that. Commonwealth, which goes back to 1959. We have the explanatory notes for Queensland from 1999, and we have case law. Now, OSLI has the text of all officially reported High Court decisions and the Commonwealth law reports since 1903. I mention that because you do need to, I'll just stop the share for a moment, you do need to be concerned to find, where possible, the authorised reports as opposed to the unauthorised reports. When you're tendering material in a court context, you always tender, if available, the authorised material. So in the Commonwealth sphere for case law in the High Court, the authorised material is CLR as opposed to other reports such as HCA. I'll just stop the share now and, to start the share again, and we'll go back to OSLI and explore some of the other features available to you. One welcome feature is this news and database additions. That's great if you're just browsing, and I encourage you to take time to browse. For example, I'm really interested in this section of law. Capacity in the law. We have a recent second edition of an article that was published originally in 2011, I believe. And this is secondary materials, but very interesting. So if you have a research question about capacity and wills, we have this up-to-date information through Chapter 4 in that content, which is available to you absolutely free of charge. And that was uploaded in June 2017. All right, so that's an example of what you can find in browsing through the up-to-date materials. But as you'll see, the OSLI website contains not only legislation, case law, it has tribunal decisions, journals, it has related entries to other material. Now, let's briefly talk about the search engines. There are different ways to search through the material. Again, if you want more detailed guides, go to the user guide, which is at the bottom right-hand side. I've just shown you that briefly. I'll show you that again. But here are some of the things that I use at the landing page, the front page, if you like. At the top, we have a search facility. You can search all databases. If you undertake a search within a page where, if you've gone to, for example, the Acts Interpretation Act, it will provide you with a jurisdiction page search, which means that the default is to limit the search to databases from that jurisdiction only. The advanced search function is available on the front page. So we have a drop down to advanced search. Let's try that. And you'll see that you have an opportunity to enter some search terms. Now, the default is consumer near protection. That's one of the, if you like, the Boolean connectors. So when we say near, it means the first term is within 50 words of the second term. A very common one is and. So let's choose this as an example to highlight the search facility that's available to you through that catalogue. Now I'll just cut and paste some material into the search facility. We'll hit go. So we're now searching the databases for information about negligence and balcony and fall, and you'll see that there are 680 documents found for that three-part inquiry. We have the advanced search function, which is available to you through databases, and you can search the various databases by effectively deselecting and then reselecting what it is that you want. So let's say that we want our search negligence and balcony and fall, but this time we want to refine it to only talk about or find searches that relate to databases, courts, case law databases. So we'll try that advanced search, see what happens. So now we've got 406 documents. We can further refine that, and one of the ways to do that is by clicking at the top by citation frequency, for example, and you'll see that Jones and Bartlett comes up as the case which is most cited under case law relevant to negligence and balcony and fall. You'll see there that it's cited by 343 citations. That's through LawSite. Let's just have a quick look at LawSite. We will come back to LawSite. It's a citator. It's excellent. And you'll see there that relevant to Jones and Bartlett, this is the list of 343 citations. So it was referred to in Burkett and Burkett as recently as 2007 on the 9th of November. Full text available through Ostley, and that's an example of how that case, Jones and Bartlett, has been cited elsewhere. If we go back to where we were, you can see that for the general search of negligence and balcony and fall, we searched originally by relevance, then citation frequency. We can also look at database, and you'll see that we can search, for example, only those matters that relate to, say, the Queensland Court of Appeal. There are 6 documents, and you'll see there again in the same format, even though we're now down to 6 documents that relate to negligence and balcony and fall, relevant to the Queensland Court of Appeal. You'll see all these citations are QCA, Queensland Court of Appeal, and the reference there is to relevance, citation frequency, database again. So you can just follow these links in that format. Now, I mentioned briefly some search terms, the use of the word and or the near we saw previously. If I go back to Ostley, and to get back to home, I always click on the Ostley logo. We go back to the user guide, and you'll find that there are a list of connectors which are relevant to searching in Ostley, and there they are. So the operator that I guess I use most often is and, but it can be or not, or near or within. So they're different search techniques that you can use. All right, so when it comes to using Ostley, there's really no substitute, I think, to just taking some time, get a cup of tea, sit down and just work your way through and get a feel for it. There's no right or wrong answer to how you go about doing this research in Ostley or generally. And it's important that you develop your own techniques. Before you move into the next video, why don't you take some time and search for, say, the Police Powers and Responsibilities Act. Try and find section 754. See if you can find some cases relevant to that section. Also, see if you can find the Queensland Criminal Code and try and find the Australian Consumer Law. Anyway, a bit of homework for you. See if you can find those things. Before we leave Ostley, I will come back to LawSite, which is the excellent legal citator. I'll share the screen to do that. Hopefully you see now the screen. We'll go back to the main landing page, front page, and let's have a look at LawSite. So over on the right-hand side in the top ribbon, the red ribbon, you'll see LawSite. And you can undertake different searches here. But you've got to be careful to ensure that you put it in the right box. So for example, let's undertake a search for Dietrich against the Crown. If you pop it in the wrong box, try and search, it will say there's nothing there. No cases or journals found. It's in the wrong box because it should have gone in here, parties, Dietrich against the Crown. Let's search it this time and you'll see 10 matching cases, including the High Court decision itself, which is cited 1,300 times over here on the right-hand side. Matching journals, and Dietrich was all about trial without counsel and human rights. So there's some great journal articles that link you to that case. Let's go back and try something a bit different. We'll delete the search terms that I had previously inserted. And this time, let's consider the Family Law Act 1975 and Section 79, which is to do with alteration of property rights. Let's search that. And you'll find that there are many matching cases, 4,367. Each of these have hyperlinks to the case, and you can follow through. Let's go back to Ausley homepage, just as a comparison, and use the Note-Up facility rather than LawSite to consider Section 79 of the Family Law Act. So what I'm doing now is moving to the Family Law Act. You'll see it's accessed regularly, so it comes up without having to go to the A to Z. I'm looking for Section 79. Again, I scroll. I've got a feeling this is a very old-fashioned way of doing it. I look forward to your comments as to how I can improve my technique. Section 79, hyperlink, alteration of property interests. And that's the section, very familiar to us now, cited by Note-Up references. And we'll see that there are 5,259 documents found as Note-Up references to Section 79. All right, well that brings me to the end of this second video in relation to legal research. Please do a little bit of research before you move on to the third. Try and find those things that I mentioned to you, but spend some time in Ausley. It's a valuable resource and something that you should treasure as part of your legal research arsenal. All the best. I'll speak to you soon.